As seen earlier, Glasnost and Perestroika were two important reforms made by Mikhail Gorbachev that could affect social, political, and economic sectors of society in the Soviet Union. Thus, these two reforms acted as a catalyst for the freedom of Ukraine. One of the most significant effects of Glasnost was the revival of Ukrainian nationalism because, for decades, Ukrainian culture and language had been suppressed by the Soviet government. The Soviet government promoted Russian as the dominant language and sought to assimilate the Ukrainian subculture right into a broader Soviet identity. However, the introduction of Glasnost led to a relaxation of censorship and greater freedom of expression. This new openness allowed Ukrainians to explore and fully celebrate their cultural heritage. Ukrainian intellectuals, artists, and writers began to re-emerge and express their distinctive identity, fostering a renewed interest in Ukrainian history, language, and culture. Publications in the Ukrainian language increased, and cultural events and organizations dedicated to promoting Ukrainian heritage started to flourish. The revitalization of Ukrainian nationalism was fueled by a desire to reclaim and assert a distinct Ukrainian identity, separate from the Soviet system. Glasnost performed a giant position in bringing light to the ancient activities which were suppressed or distorted below the Soviet regime, along with the Holodomor. The Holodomor, which befell in the early 30s, was a person-made famine orchestrated by means of the Soviet authorities, normally targeting Ukraine, resulting in the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians. The recognition of the Holodomor as a deliberate act of oppression and genocide against the Ukrainian people further contributed to the growth of Ukrainian national consciousness. It became a symbol of the resilience and suffering of the Ukrainian nation under Soviet rule. The re-evaluation of suppressed aspects of Ukrainian history, including the Holodomor, fostered a stronger sense of identity and unity among Ukrainians. Glasnost also created opportunities for the growth of independent media outlets within Ukraine. This newfound openness led to the emergence of fresh newspapers, magazines, and television programs that provided platforms for diverse voices and alternative perspectives. Independent media played a pivotal role in the dissemination of information, raising awareness, and questioning the previously dominant state-controlled narrative. Their presence significantly contributed to the development of a more diverse, pluralistic, and liberal media landscape in Ukraine. Glasnost paved path for perestroika by creating an atmosphere of political pluralism and decentralization. Perestroika was a pioneering attempt by Soviet authorities at revamping their struggling economy through innovative economic and political restructuring programs. This move involved introducing certain limited market mechanisms, which alongside promotes decentralization measures that geared towards boosting productivity, efficiency, and innovation in various sectors of their economy. Here, economic decentralization referred to the shift of Soviets' highly centralized economy to one that allowed for more local decision-making. Thus, the aim was to make enterprises more self-reliant, responsive, and efficient by granting them greater control over their production decisions, resource allocation, pricing, and financial management, which leads to make enterprises financially self-sufficient because previously, state-owned enterprises received funding and resources directly from the central government. With self-financing, enterprises were expected to generate their own revenues, cover their expenses, and reinvest profits for further development. This meant that instead of relying on strict central planning directives, enterprises had the flexibility to adapt to market conditions and respond to their consumer demands. Decentralization of economy may also lead to privatization and the establishment of cooperative enterprises. This involved transforming some state-owned enterprises into privately owned entities or worker-owned cooperatives. The goal was to introduce market forces, competition, and individual incentives into the economy by allowing private ownership and entrepreneurship to flourish. Perestroika's economic reforms allowed limited and decentralized market regulation. This gave provinces within the Soviet Union, including Ukraine, greater economic opportunity and autonomy. Ukraine's leaders have begun to look for ways to develop and strengthen their economy, contributing to a sense of self-reliance and a desire for greater independence, as perestroika also played a significant role in the liberalization of Ukraine from the Soviet Union. It did this by creating an environment that stimulated Ukrainian national identity and aspirations for independence with glasnost. As this policy was created to make a powerful impact not only on economic reform and its decentralization, but also on reform for political independence and its decentralization too. Thus, it was aimed at decentralizing political power and reducing the dominance of the Communist Party, allowing for more participation from various social groups and stimulating political pluralism. Under perestroika, the Soviet Union saw a slow rise in political power and the emergence of many political parties. This led to the formation of liberal groups and groups in Ukraine, such as the People's Movement of Ukraine, Ruch. These groups advocated greater independence and eventual independence from the Soviet Union. Although glasnost and perestroika were related and aimed at transforming the Soviet Union, they differed in focus and impact. Glasnost dealt primarily with political and social liberalism, while perestroika was primarily concerned with economic and political restructuring. Glasnost aimed at providing transparency and public participation, while perestroika sought only to revitalize the Soviet economy and reduce the power of the Communist Party.